I invite you to please rise as you're able for the Holy Gospel according to Luke chapter 12. Jesus said, "I have come to bring fire to the earth, and how I wish it were already kindled. I have a baptism with which to be baptized, and what stress am I under until it is completed? Do you think I have come to bring peace to the earth? No, I tell you, but rather division. From now on, 5 in one household will be divided. 3 against 2, and 2 against 3, they will be divided. Father against son, son against father, mother against daughter, and daughter against mother, mother-in-law against daughter-in-law, and daughter-in-law against mother-in-law." Jesus also said to the crowds, "When you see a cloud rising in the west, you immediately say, 'It is going to rain.' And so it happens. And when you see the south wind blowing, you say, 'There will be scorching heat.' And it happens. You hypocrites, do you not know how to interpret the appearance of the earth and sky? But why do you not know how to interpret the present time?" The Gospel of the Lord. I think it's a little bit funny that Jesus scolds us for being able to look at the clouds and knowing whether or not it's going to rain. And that felt really hard to do today, because I was driving in and it was like, it has a 10% chance of rain and 8% chance of rain, and it's still raining. So thanks for adjusting with me. I appreciate it. And I want to rewind a little ways back, though, to start. When I was driving to pick up my first pair of prescription glasses, my mom told me of when she got her first pair of glasses. The story goes, as my mom told me, that my mom walked out of the optometrist's office with her new glasses on and exclaimed, "Wow, I can see the leaves on the trees," which made her mom, my grandmother, feel like she'd failed as a mother, that she had overlooked her daughter's declining eyesight for so long that she was amazed to see leaves on trees again. A few minutes later, I myself was walking out of the eye doctor's office with my own pair of glasses on, and my mom asked how it felt to wear glasses. Took a second to look around, see what the world looked like through a prescription lens, take inventory of what I was seeing, and I replied, I wouldn't have thought to put it this way on my own, but I can now see leaves on trees again, too," which left my mom horrified that she too had failed like her mom before her. You see, it's not that the leaves were invisible to me. Just trees looked green. Without glasses, the foliage was more like an impressionist painting than a crystal clear image. But then I put glasses on, and I didn't see a general image or shape. I saw detail. The world had regained more depth and detail. Today's gospel ends with an exasperated Jesus scolding those in the crowd surrounding him. He accuses them of being able to interpret the appearance of earth and of the sky, but not of the present time. In other words, Jesus accuses the people of missing what is right in front of them. It's as if those people needed glasses themselves, of help seeing what is actually happening in front of them, like putting on a corrective lens of faith, if you will. Which begs the question, what is the crowd not seeing in this story that they're supposed to see? Buying a house has made me far more like my mother and my grandfather than I expected. You see, my mom and my grandfather were the gardeners of the family. And honestly, I was pretty indifferent to their hobby growing up. However, since I now have a house and yard of my own, I feel like I'm turning into them. And my wife, Alyssa, has noticed it too. Like when we go on a walk, I go, "Oh, look at that sumac." And then she goes, "You're sounding like your grandfather, You're naming all the plants you see in our neighbor's yard." And then a few minutes later, I'm like, "Oh, I really like that, baptisia." And then I realize I'm doing it again and feel self-conscious. Or maybe when I'm parking out by the retaining pond in our out by our parking lot out here, I'd previously just seen plants. Now I've started to notice this year, since I paid more attention to what I put in my garden, I see milkweed and prairie dock and cup plants. Like the leaves on the trees without putting on my glasses, once I started gardening, it just went from like a general plant to specific detail. Milkweed there for the increasingly rare monarch butterflies to plant their little ones that are going to become full-grown butterflies, and cup plants, one of the best plants for goldfinches. The plants were always there. I just didn't notice them for years. I was too busy or just not interested enough to stop and admire what was right in front of me when I parked at church. This raises the question again, like the crowds in Luke 12, what else am I overlooking? What else is right in front of me but just not noticing? If you heard today's gospel and thought, yikes, this sounds really intense with Jesus talking about bringing fire to the earth and how he wished it was already kindled. That sounds like a wrathful message of destruction. You may be missing something. As we talked about in the children's sermon, we have fire throughout our church. When we have a baptism, we give people a candle. As we prepare for Christmas, we light a candle each Sunday in Advent. And for funerals, we light the candle that we lit in the back today, and we move it to the front of the church. We light candles on the altar each week. We've got a lot of fire here. None of these flames have anything to do with condemnation and judgment. They're more like the fire of the burning bush. They're a sign of God's abiding presence, of God's loving presence. The great Johnny Cash's song, Ring of Fire, begins, love is a burning thing. So God's fire is not to destroy, but to warm, to comfort, to remind us that God is with us. Christ coming to bring fire to earth isn't a fire inherently to destroy, but to fill the world with God's abiding presence, God's loving presence. Today's gospel begins with Jesus declaring he's bringing fire, bringing God's presence here on earth. And then it ends with Jesus asking, why are we not seeing what's directly in front of us? What are we not seeing without these lenses of faith? And these two things are related that Jesus is talking about. Christ has come to bring God's presence. Do we see God around us? Do we see God's love around us? Where is God's love filling the world? This week, on Tuesday, I was one of 16 people from our church that went to a Brewers game with our high school group. And also this week, I attended our ELCA board meeting to learn how I, in my new position as the pastor of faith formation here, could best support ELCA moving forward. And for those of you that aren't familiar with the acronym ELCA, ELCA is Women of the ELCA. It's our women's ministry here at Atonement and nationwide in our denomination. And I was struck that in both ELCA and in our high school group, there's such deep love for one another. There's special friendships that exist in these groups. And I was inspired by one member of our ELCA board telling me they want people to join ELCA, not out of a desire just to preserve ELCA as an institution here in our church, but to help others find what they have found in ELCA: love, community, long-lasting faith-based friendships. There's so much love and care around here. Love and care that's not just reserved for those of us that worship here together, but love that is spilled over and shared with the world around us. Just listen to our announcements. There's always some way we're working to help the world here. I have also intentionally named in this sermon the high school group and ELCA, because they're two vital ministries here at Atonement. We're a church that cares deeply about our young people, and we're also a church that are proud of our community and the service that we do, and ELCA is so central to that. They're vital to who Atonement is, but these ministries haven't always been the most woven into our common life together. Think about our high school group at the end of the hall on Sundays during the school year in the Acts room. And then the ELCA ladies, they get their Sunday each September for Women's Sunday and lead much of the charitable work here. But nevertheless, ELCA hasn't always been the most supported or recognized or appreciated ministry here. And then with this, too, theologian and expert in sexual ethics Mark Jordan observed in a book 17 years ago that too many churches, when talking about homosexuality, for instance, are talking about it's an issue that is outside of the church, and that we as the church inside get to decide whether we want to let them that are outside in, when in fact there are already gay and lesbian and queer people in our community. Our gay, lesbian, or otherwise queer members may not always be seen or recognized, but they're already here. Like the leaves when I don't wear my glasses, or perhaps our youth in ELCA, or the plants that are supporting life out in our retaining pond, there's so much good and exciting things happening around us. There's new life bubbling up. There's God's love surrounding us and filling our community. And this may feel like a season of transition, of goodbyes to some, of welcoming others, of adjusting to life after COVID. But good things are happening, and more good things are coming. God is here. God's loving presence is here. Whether we see it or not, good things are breaking forth. And we're invited to look, to put on that lens of faith and see life breaking forth, love breaking forth. For all these good and loving things happening, thanks be to God. Amen.